Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, it's a little bit different because I thought I would share an Instagram live I did a few days ago with my good friend Adele, who is a career coach. So in this live, we were talking about how I was able to actually pay off over 16 grand worth of debt just with my 9-to-5 salary. And we give so many good nuggets when it comes to thinking about whether you actually need to be increasing your income through your 9-to-5 job, or if there potentially might be another problem you need to focus on instead. So I do hope you enjoyed this chat.
Hey guys, another day, another live. So today I am going to be talking to the lovely Veronia Spain, and we're going to be talking all about how she cleared 16K's worth of debt in 18 months using her 9-to-5 when she was only earning 27,000 a year. We actually did a podcast episode. We recorded it earlier today and it will be out next week. And I am excited for us to talk about this subject because when you have your 9-to-5, clearing debt doesn't always seem possible. It always feels like you might need a second 9-to-5 or you might need a side hustle. But Veronia is here to tell you that that is not the case. Veronia is a money coach. So what better opportunity than to have a money coach and a career coach in one place where you can speak to them both. So I think she is here. So I am going to let her in. Hello, lovely.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you.
Fabulous. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you. How are
Good
you?
to see
I
you.
loved our podcast earlier today as well.
So good, right? Like I was just telling everyone that our podcast was so good. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. It will be out next week, Wednesday. So yeah, keep your eye out for that, guys. And if you haven't listened to this week's podcast episode, it was with Ange from the Growth Corner. Amazing. Like I've gotten to speak to 2 money coaches, and they're sharing all the gems with you. So me and Veronia wanted to come on today and talk to you guys. So Veronia, introduce yourself properly.
Yeah. So hi everyone, my name's Veronia, as Adele mentioned, and I'm a money coach, and essentially my goal is to help as many women as possible save more money and start investing so they can start working towards financial independence. And I'm really passionate about it because at the end of the day, money isn't spoken about in schools or even in the workplace either. And I realized that in order to become financially independent, there are so many things that you need to do outside of work so that you can make it happen. So that is essentially what I do.
Oh, I love it. So today, guys, we're going to get into how, Veronia, I mentioned this before you jumped on, but I was telling everyone how you were able to clear 16K's worth of debt in 18 months with a 9-to-5 that was only at the time paying you 27,000. When you told me that earlier, it blew my mind. I think the 27,000 also is what also blew my mind. Like you're on 27K, but you cleared 16K. I'm like, you have no salary left. And something we spoke about when we was talking was the fact that you did all that without living like a hermit in the dark in a room eating noodles. Like that is not what you did. You still lived your life. You were not in a room eating noodles, just sad and crying to yourself. You paid this debt off while still living your life, while still doing the things you needed to do. So tell everyone a little bit about your story and then we'll get into some more stuff. So let them know how you did it, where you was at, what happened.
So I can talk about how I actually ended up getting into debt first. And essentially it started off with me having a maxed out overdraft from university. You know, student loan had dropped. Clearly that wasn't enough for me. I kind of used the overdraft not really for necessities, to go on holidays, I'm not gonna lie. And it got to a point where I was then working after university, was still maxed out, didn't pay it off, went back to university to do my master's, again, didn't pay it off, and then started my graduate job, and I still struggled to actually pay off the overdraft. And when I started my graduate job, I was actually driving to work because I used to live in London, then had to move out of London to travel to my work. And I remember just seeing all of these people, like all of my colleagues with these nice cars, and I still had my car that I used back in university. It was like 15 years old. It was, you know, pretty old, but it was still working. And honestly, the pressure got to me where I was like, no, I think I need a new car. Like I'm a working girl. I can't be driving this kind of car anymore. And so I decided to buy another car. But I didn't have any savings for it. I didn't have enough to buy the car outright, so I needed to finance it. So I did it with my bank, not realizing that the interest I was paying was 11.6%. So I was paying that monthly, and the car itself plus the interest came to about 14 grand. So in total, I had about 16 grand debt. So I realized when I started learning more about personal finance that I had quite a lot of debt that I probably wanted to pay off. And so I kind of went into like a whole trajectory of trying to pay it off as soon as possible. And we can obviously talk about that in a bit as well.
So guys, you heard it here. Like, we've all done it, like taken out a credit card or got some finance on a car and not actually looked at how much we are paying in interest. And we've all been there. Like, I've used credit cards to travel and to do other things and max them out. I put myself in situations that I was like, why did you do that? Especially before I understood savings and all of that stuff. So based on everything you were saying, so you got yourself into this debt, which happens to the best of us. So people listening, I want you guys to understand that this isn't a situation where we're saying, let's beat people up over debt. Debt happens to all of us. Everyone at some point has got into debt. We just actually got a comment where someone said, oh, hi, I know who that is. Women about finance. Scarcity and deprivation whilst clearing debt is not the one. Absolutely not. If you've got a scarcity mindset, and you think the only way to clear your debt is to literally do nothing, you're going to be so sad and so depressed even, and so like just anxious because you're not living your life. Your life is literally centered around just this debt.
Yeah.
And you can't center your life around debt. I know you can speak on that much more than I can as well. So what would you say about that? Like the whole scarcity mindset and deprivation?
100%. Yeah. I think for me, one of the things that I actually worked on was trying to think a lot more abundantly when it came to my debt, because if I almost told myself, oh no, I can never pay off my debt, like it's just not happening, obviously the result would have been that I just didn't pay off my debt. But actually I had to ask myself, no, I can pay it off. It might take me a while, but I know that if I just create a plan and I start thinking, actually, you know, I can use money as a tool, and I can use, although I've made this mistake, it's fine. If I can just work on it, like it will be fine. And for me, and we talk about this in the podcast, but for me, paying off the debt wasn't just the end destination for me. I was thinking bigger. I was thinking about financial independence. I was thinking about, just creating an emergency fund and being able to save for that. And that actually helped me, because it meant that paying off the debt was just a part of the process. Like, that was just part of the plan. And then once I did that, I was moving on to the next thing.
And that's my favorite part. One of my favorite things that we spoke about earlier today when we recorded that podcast episode is that it was just the start. Guys, if you can get yourself organization, this is a woman after my own heart. Planning. I love a good plan. I love a good strategy. I love to know like A, B, C, like how am I getting to where I need to. But if you listen to what Veronia said, she was saying like, if you plan it out right, you can pay off your debt. And then that's the start of what next, because all that money you were now using to pay off debt, once the debt's paid, you've got all this extra money. You've basically given yourself a pay rise. Because if you're paying, just say £400 a month on your debt, once the debt is cleared, you now have £400 a month extra. You can, what's next for you? Do you want to invest? That's another thing Veronia helps women do. Invest so that you can turn your money into more money. Do you want to travel more, but not put it on a credit card? Like, I love booking, like I love now that I can book a holiday cash if I want to. I can just be like, bang, this 5-star holiday cash. I couldn't do that before. And I totally agree with you, because when I paid off all my debt, that is when I first started looking into investing. When all my debt was gone and I was debt free, and I think it was like 2017 around that time. 2018 was when I was like, oh, there's more that can be done with money. How can I invest? What's a bond? What are stocks? But I didn't have that freedom in my mind until my debt was paid off. Because something I mentioned to Veronia earlier was, when I was in debt, it felt like chaos in my brain. And I love that Veronia talks about that chaos can be cleared up, but you don't have to do just one thing. You can pay off your debt and still live your life. So tell us, how did you, and I know I'm already going to love your answer to this, because I remember we spoke about it earlier, but how did you pay off your debt and still live your life? Like, because like I said, we don't want to be hermits living in the house, not going out to eat, especially girlies like me.
Yeah,
food,
100%.
all that good stuff. I want to still be able to, you know, enjoy time with my friend, but also I'm happy to sacrifice in the short term for the long term. But how
Yeah.
did you go about, what did you do so that you could still go out and do
Yeah.
things
So
more?
I realized that I had a spending problem. So the problem that I had is that I couldn't tell you what I spent my money on. It just, by the end of the month, the money was gone, and I really struggled to save any money. I would just literally spend my whole paycheck. But what I started to question is the things that I'm actually spending money on, do they actually matter to me? Are they beneficial to me? Do I like the idea that I've spent money on this particular thing? And when I was going through my bank statements, I just realized that I spent money on anything and everything, and I didn't even care what it was. So as an example, I would buy clothes, not because I actually wanted to wear the clothes, but because they were on sale. And so because I saw 50% off, 60% off, I was like, oh, bargain, bargain. I've just saved some money. Obviously not realizing that I'd actually just spent the money, but I wouldn't even wear the clothes. Like half of those clothes were just sitting in my wardrobe and they still had the tags on. And I never really wore them because I didn't buy the clothes so I could actually wear them for, a particular event. I just bought them because I saw them on sale. So I then decided that I was actually going to change the way I spend money, and I was only going to focus on things that, either I had to spend money on because, bills, you got to pay your bills, but also I would spend money on things that actually matter to me and literally disregard the things that I didn't really care about or they just didn't benefit me. So for me, one of the things was my housing situation. So I was obviously working outside London, I realized that I wasn't really living at my place very often. I wasn't staying at my place very often. Like I would go to work for a few days of the week, but then I would then come back to London and spend the whole weekend there and work from home in London sometimes as well. So I went, okay, well, if I'm not really at the place very often, why don't I just try and reduce that housing cost, since I don't care like where I live at the moment, and use that money to then overpay on my debt so that I also can still spend some of that money as well. And so I decided to become a lodger at a family home. They were so nice, but I ended up paying $300 a month, all bills included. And that was my housing cost.
Crazy. I said this to you earlier. Crazy. That £300, it's not heard of.
Yeah.
But I love the way you got creative.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, people listening, Veronia's not telling you to go and rent a room. What she's telling you is she looked at what was most important to her. Being able to go out was still important to her, but she had two places. She was in London and outside London. The outside London, she didn't really need a home because she wasn't there that often. So she eliminated that cost and reduced it all the way down. So are you looking at areas in your life where actually you don't care about that thing, you're just doing it because it's what you're meant to do?
Mm-hmm.
And can you get rid of it? So you reduced your cost there, and then obviously that helped you with your spending. So is that how you were able to still sort of go out? And
yeah, so and one of the things that I would say is that I decided to start planning out my spending as well. So like a lot of people will call it a budget, spending plan, whatever you want to call it. I personally call it a budget because I just loved it. And I think budget has a bad rep sometimes because we think that like, oh, the budget is there to just restrict you and you're not supposed to spend your money. But I always say that you are the one that's in charge of the budget. So if the budget is restricting you, it's because you have decided to restrict yourself. Ooh. So for me, that budget allowed me to just understand, okay, this is how much I want to overpay on my debt by and save. This is how much I need to pay my bills, and this is how much I want to spend. How do I actually want to spend my money? Where do I want to go during the month? And how much do I want to spend? So I got to decide how much I wanted to spend. So it meant that, again, I didn't end up overspending because I decided how much I want to spend, but then it wasn't at a detriment to me being able to save that money and to then also overpay on my debt.
Oh, I really like that you just said that, because you literally just said if the budget is horrible and you don't like it, it's your fault. You made the budget, because we're our own worst critics. We're our own worst boss. Like, you're the boss. So if you're the boss, if something you don't like if the budget is too restrictive, ease up on yourself.
Yeah.
Get to release it a little bit. Oh my gosh, I love that you said that. I think we may have a question. Oh yeah, we have a question from Her Tech. I keep being stingy with money even though I have money. because I used to be a bad spender. Oh, that's a big one. What would you say to someone like that? Like, they're being stingy because they used to be bad with, I hate when people say bad with money, but I get it. Like, I class myself now as someone who's really good with money. I'm really good at saving, like really good. But I get that feeling, like when I used to feel like debt made me feel like I was bad with money. So she's saying because she feels like that's her identity, she's now really stingy. So what would you suggest to someone like that?
Yeah. So I would say that one of the reasons that probably happens is because you haven't actually figured out a plan in terms of what you're going to be saving for or investing for, or, you know, overpaying on your debt. So for me, when I knew, okay, this is the minimum amount that I want to be overpaying on my debt by and saving by, that then allowed me to realize, once I've done that, I know I'm still going to reach my goal. That means I can spend the rest of the money. And it really freed me up to not feel guilty actually spending the money, because I knew that I was still going to hit my goal regardless. And I think that is so important, especially if you are a natural spender. Like, I used to spend money on everything, but it helped me because I was like, oh, actually, I do still have the freedom to spend, but I can still save a lot of money. I can still overpay on my debt, and you can do both. And it's like, where are you allowing yourself to do both? Do you actually know how much you want to be saving each month, or how much you want to be overpaying your debt by, so that once you've done it, you then have the freedom to spend that money?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, looking at every area of your finance. Like earlier when you were talking about just spending money on clothes because you saw a sale and you were like, oh, I'm getting it. That was me. Like, when Veronia first said that earlier today, I thought it felt like she was calling me out, because I was like, that used to be me. But guys, everything Veronia's saying is so true, because when I stopped like just buying clothes for the sale, like, I had clothes that I had not worn, like clothes that I bought from the year before that I still haven't worn. Why are they in my cupboard? A lot of you fashion girls, I already know, if you go to the wardrobe now, there is like thousands of pounds worth of clothes that you've probably either worn once or not at all, still got the labels on. And the truth is, when I stopped doing that, like impulse buying, impulse spending because there's a sale, all that money that I used to spend on that stuff was just in my bank. And it meant that I started to be able to travel more. I was able to like take me and my daughter to like 5-star holidays, because I wasn't spending my money on nonsense. I knew where my money, exactly what you said, I knew where my money was going. I was like, I haven't bought all these ridiculous clothes in the last 6 months. And actually that means that I've got like this random like 2,000, maybe 1,000 pounds just spare. What do I want to do with it? And for me, that was travel. Everyone's different, but also it was also investing for me. So taking some of that money, investing, and then the rest of it, what do I want to do? Building an emergency fund, saving. I love that when you speak about money, you don't say this or that, you say all the things. How can we make everything work in unison? And I think that's so important, because people always feel like it's got to be this or that rather than all the things. So I love the sort of way that you explain it. What made you, after you paid down your debt, because I want to talk just a little bit about how you help people invest and how you invest. Was that the point where you decided you were going to invest, or had you already beforehand? I think that's really important for people. Had you already been thinking about what you were going to do once your debt paid off?
Yeah. So going back to when I was talking about the debt wasn't the end destination. So for me, I knew that I wanted to become financially independent. And in terms of what financial independence means, I just wanted to have the option to do what I want to do when I want to do it, without having to depend on my job to pay my bills. So I wanted to get to a point where I had investments paying for my bills, so that I could choose whether I wanted to work, or I could choose to take a break or do anything else. So because I knew that that was like my North Star goal, essentially I knew that, okay, part of that means that I need to pay off my debt, because I need, you know, the money to start investing, and there's no point in me having all these payments. So whilst I was then paying off my debt, I was already learning how to invest. I already knew what my next steps were, so that by the time I then paid off my debt, I knew the next thing for me was to fully build my emergency fund, get that to the side and get it done. And so after that, I dove straight into investing. So I started investing through the stock market, and I didn't have to, you know, wait and learn, because I had already started learning about it whilst I was paying off my debt. I didn't actually invest whilst I was paying off my debt, but I started learning about it. I started educating myself around it, so that by the time I was ready, I was like, yep, we're good to go.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And guys, I want to touch on something else as well, because again, like I said, me and Veronia spoke earlier when we recorded our podcast episode. Veronia did all of this on a 27k salary. She didn't get a pay rise. She figured this all out on a 27k salary, and she was able to pay off 16k. But before we talk about, because you did then get a pay rise after you'd already paid off your debt, which means you just had extra money because now you were really good at saving and paying off debt. But tell people really quickly before we go into that part of it, how the first 6 months when you were paying off that debt, how much did you save to pay off in the first 6 months versus what you did in that final 12 months?
Yeah, so the first 6 months was a bit of a mess. I'm not even going to lie, because I made so many mistakes. So with the first 6 months, it took me to save £1,000, a whole grand. It took me to save £1,000. And part of the reason behind that was because I made so many mistakes. I kept dipping into my savings. Every time I would try and save money, another expense would come up, and then I'd have to pay for that. So I'd have to keep dipping into it. And so because I made so many mistakes, it took me quite a while, a good 6 months. But I think one of the things that I really loved was the idea that I just still didn't give up. Like, even though month after month after month, it felt like it wasn't working, I decided to keep going. And so, yes, it took me 6 months to save my first 1,000, but then after 12 months, I ended up paying the full debt amount. So the full 15 grand.
So basically, it took her 6 months just to get 1,000, but then it only took her a year to get 15,000. And it's important, like you said, she made mistakes, she failed, but she kept going. And I feel like so many of us, that's where we go wrong. When things are not going right immediately, we give up. We're like, well, I've been doing it for 3 months, I've been doing it for 6 months. Sometimes your breakthrough is about to come, guys, but you feel like I've been doing it for a year, I've been doing it for 2 years, I've been doing it for 6 months, nothing's working. Guess what? The time that it feels like it's not working, you're learning, you're making mistakes, you're getting better, so that when you're in your season, like Veronia was in those 12 months where she was able to pay 15k in 12 months, but yet it took her 6 months just to do 1k prior to that, is because she fell into her season, but because she was willing to fail and make mistakes and keep going. And I feel like that's just a word. I feel like someone has to hear that today. Someone needs to hear the fact that your season's coming, your breakthrough's coming, but the time that you think it's taken, the time that makes you want to give up, I've been doing it for a year. Whether it's your career or your business, I've been doing it for a year. It's taking me, nothing's happening. You might give up the day before something was about to happen. Yeah. You might give up the month before something was about to happen. The fact that you kept going even when it felt like nothing was working is why you are where you are. I think that's really important to touch on. Earlier you said for you had a spending problem. Mm-hmm. What's the other type of problem that someone possibly might have if it's not a spending problem?
Yeah, so I always say that most likely there's going to be two problems, and you need to understand what problem you have. So either you have a spending problem where you know that you're struggling to, save because of like impulse spending, you don't really know where your money is going, but you also may have an income problem. And so when I mean an income problem, what I mean is that if your expenses exceed your income, it means that you then need to really start focusing on how you can actually increase your income, because there's only so much you're going to be able to save. And so I always say it's really important to understand which problem you have first, because if you have an income problem, if you don't increase the income, you're still going to be at the same point. You're not going to be able to pay off that debt. You're not going to be able to save. Whereas if you have a spending problem, even if you increase your income, you will probably find that you're still in the same position because you haven't actually fixed the right problem, which is your spending.
This is so true. I had a client who literally tripled her income, and a year later came to me and said, Adele, I still don't have no money. Yeah. And I was like, but we tripled your income. You went from being on £8 an hour to like 26 or 27. How? And she was like, I don't know. And that's a spending problem, guys. Mm. I work with women that are earning 70, 80, 90, 100k, and they still say to me they haven't got money. That's a spending problem, guys. An income problem is when your outgoings are like £2,000 and your income is £2,000. If you have the exact amount of money, even if your outgoings are £2,000 and your income is 2,005, you don't have enough. Yeah, I say this all the time. The reason you don't have enough is, what about an emergency? Mm-hmm. What about if you've got kids and your kids need something out of nowhere? Because these schools always be like tapping our pockets all the time. So what happens then? What happens when you haven't got enough coming in? And that's where I say that's when we need to start talking about your current skills are worth more than you're getting paid for. I almost can guarantee most women were on about 10k less than we should be. A lot of men are out here like a bull in a china shop, applying to high flying jobs. They meet about 20% of the job criteria, but they're getting the job. Why? Because they've got the confidence to go for it. Us as women, we're very much like perfectionists almost. Oh, I haven't done this and I haven't done this, so I can't apply. And then you've got these men out here who are our bosses, some of them, who don't have half the experience you have, but they just went for it. And we
saw
kind of
one bit on the job description and said,
yeah, that's it. Like, I actually know guys I speak to that are like, yeah, what? There was 2 things on there that I can do, so I applied. I got the job in it. Now what do I? And I'm like, huh? And then us as women will be like, oh, there's 7 things, but I don't meet 3 things, so I'm not gonna apply. Guys, start applying for the higher paying job. I had a conversation with someone earlier today, and she was like, the reason she doesn't apply for higher paying job is because it means it's going to be more responsibility. And I was like, but why? I was like, you can see the same job in different companies, same job title, same job description. Some companies just pay way more. Guys, just to speak on my own experience, in April, you guys know last year I was made redundant. In April, I started a new job. I have less responsibility because that's what I wanted. I looked for a job that was less responsibility. I was an operations director before. Now I'm the manager. So I'm below the operations director. The operations director is my boss. Yeah, I earned the exact same money I did as an operations director. Why? Because the company I now work for just pays way better than the company I just came. And I love my old company. I was there for 11 years. I loved it. But just know your current skills can get you more money somewhere else. 100%. Your current skills are worth more. Start applying for those higher paying jobs. They don't always mean more responsibility. To be honest, bigger companies usually have bigger people. So there's more people to help. Like, there's more departments. Like, we both were from recruitment. We both have a recruitment background. As a recruiter, I used to do 360 recruitment. I used to do the compliance, the references, everything. When I got into a big company, they had someone else to do my compliance for me. And all I had to do was speak to candidates and clients. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was making the same money for doing way less work. So I want you to understand that more money doesn't automatically mean more responsibility. Yeah. Sometimes you're just in a job that doesn't pay well and you need to remove yourself. Like I mentioned this earlier on my stories. One of my clients has gone from 48k to 73. She's doing the exact same job. Yeah. Human resources in the UK, exact same job. No different. She is still in HR. That says a lot. The fact that her jump is that big, it says a lot for the simple fact that sometimes we're too scared to step out of our comfort zone. And that one move has now given her such a big pay increase that if she wanted to pay off her debt, if she wanted to start investing, she can. She's good because she's been living on what she was previously earning. She's been living on the 48k. Yeah. So to now be on 73 is like, what? In one move. So guys, figuring out whether you've got an income problem or a spending problem is really important. Even if you increase your income, if you still have a spending problem, you won't see any difference. If you can do both, because like I said over here, we talk about both. We don't say one or the other. If you have a spending problem and you fix it, and then you also increase your income, how about then you're flying? How about then you're in a season? These bills in the UK are not getting any cheaper. Cost of living, my gas bill and electric bill is doubled, guys. The cost of living is not getting any better, but we are able to do both when we attack money from a perspective of like abundance, like Veronica said.
And just on that, I kind of always give this analogy where if you know you have a spending problem, what tends to happen is, if you can imagine a sieve has holes in it, right? And if you pour water into that sieve, no matter how much water you pour into, that water will just come out. It will just come out. Whereas if you then decide to actually fix that problem, and you essentially have a jug instead, where you know how to save, you know how to be able to manage your money better, you can then start to pour more and more water and the jug will start to fill up. So that's why it's so important to, yes, be able to make more money, but know how to manage that money as well, so that you can just accelerate your progress even more.
I love that analogy with the sieve. Yeah, guys, we have to plug the holes. If we don't plug the holes, the money is just coming in. Like, yeah, the money's just coming in and going straight back out, no matter how much you earn. Because if you are not great with like your spending habit, you're always going to feel like there's never enough money. You're always going to feel like money is a problem. And that's why I really wanted to link up with Veronica and speak about like money and debt and stuff like that, because as a career coach, I help so many people make more money. But if that more money doesn't translate into better quality of life, freedom, option. Because when we spoke earlier, I said to you, for me, money isn't just about material things. I don't really care. It's not about material things. It's about the options. The options I have. The options I have to be made redundant, finish the redundancy money and still be off for like 4 months because I have enough money saved that my bills are paid and I don't have to rush and just take any job I want. Options to be able to travel more often. Options to not have to take a full-time job and be able to take a part-time job, because if you're building wealth and you've got investments, your investments are just like you said, paying your bills. So looking at money gives you options to be able to look at life from a different perspective. You're looking in rather than being in it, if that kind of makes sense. So that's why I really wanted to link up with Veronia. So Veronia, before we leave the people, let me know a couple of tips, a few tips that you would give someone right now who is trying to manage their debt and is trying to get their debt down, but they don't want to, again, live like a hermit, because no one wants to be stuck in the house, being stressed out, thinking about just debt 24/7. So what tips would you give someone? Where would you tell them to start?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is learn how to save. And although this may feel a bit unconventional, where you're thinking, oh, but shouldn't I be trying to overpay on my debt? The reason why I say learn how to save first is because you will then be able to use that in so many different areas when it comes to your finances. And what it means is that, again, you'll then be thinking that the debt part is not the end destination. You'll be thinking, actually, once I pay off my debt, do I want to have a fully funded emergency fund? Do I want to save up for a house deposit? Do I now want to have some savings so I can use some of that to now start investing? Just by learning that foundation, that will then help you to just accelerate your progress, even when you're trying to pay off your debt, but with other areas. The second thing I would say is to actually, again, identify what problem do you have. Do you have a spending problem? If you have a spending problem, it's thinking about your spending habits, how you can actually fix that and work on that. But if you have an income problem, again, increasing your income, and that's where Adelle comes in, whether it's like a promotion or you moving jobs, whatever it is, really trying to make sure that you have a buffer so that you can use some of that money to then obviously put towards your debt. And it means, again, that you don't have to completely cut back on your spending as well. And then the third thing I would do is actually create a plan, especially when you're trying to pay off debt, where yes, you understand, okay, you're going to prioritize this debt first, this debt and this debt, but then after that, what else are you going to do? Again, are you going to start saving up for an emergency fund? Are you going to start thinking about things like financial independence? So once you have that plan, you can again say to yourself, I just need to tick these things off. I just need to pay off this debt, and then I can then start accelerating my progress towards some of these other financial goals.
Oh, love it. Guys, thank you so much, everyone who's come on and joined us. If you have any questions, but you're watching the replay, drop them in the comments. We will answer them. Veronia, tell the people, how can they work with you? Because you dropped so many gems tonight. So let the people know how can you... how they can work with you, how they can get in touch with you, how can they see more of you?
Yes, definitely. So I do offer one-on-one coaching. So if you're someone who maybe wants more one-on-one support when it comes to being able to save more money and also start investing, you can hop onto my Instagram via my link in bio and book a call with me. You can also follow me on Instagram here, but I also have a YouTube channel. So it's my name, Veronia Spain, and I have, I think, over 150 videos, again, over different topics around personal finance. So yeah, that is where people can catch me.
Oh, I love it. Also, catch Veronia on my podcast next week. We are deep diving into this exact subject, but we're giving you a bit more detail, a bit more information. So remember, my podcast is 5 for 2 careers, because we do not trade 5 days of misery for 2 days of fun. This is not the type of careers that we're living. So you will know, go and check it out. Check out this week's episode as well, because it is also a money episode. I've been on a roll lately with the money episodes, guys, because if you go back to episode 55, it was all about, like, you are not on sale. That's the title of the you are not on sale. So go and listen to episode 55, then listen to episode 60, which is out today. And next week, me and Veronia will be on there talking all things paying off debt, investing your money, having more money. Because when women have more money in our pockets, good things happen in the world. Simple as that. Thank you so much for joining us, Veronia. Thank you so much. It's been such a fun chat. Being able to speak to you twice in one day has been really fun. So thank you. I appreciate you. Guys, go and follow her. Work with her if you need help with your money. Ask questions. Book a call with her. But yeah, thank you. And this as long as Instagram does not glitch, guys, we'll be on our grids, on both of our grids, and you'll be able to watch the replays. All right, guys,
Yeah,
bye.
thank you so much.
Thanks, take care. Bye.
So that was a really good chat I had with Adele, and I will include her links in the description below if you do want to check her out. But if you did like this video, please also do give it a thumbs up if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments, are you currently using your 9-to-5 income to do better with your finances? I do post every Tuesday, so if you would like to know more, then of course you can subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys next week.